Hello? My story is short, but in spite of that, it left me with traumas for several years. When I was doing my service, I was assistant to the medical examiner of a hospital. I had no work experience, but I did not believe in paranormal things or anything like that. My shift was at night, and a colleague who had also done his service in the same place told me that many strange things happened at night, but not to be scared. Just ignore it and continue with my work. I was a bit skeptical, so I didn't think much of it. One night, the doctor asked me to go check the cold room to confirm the number of bodies there. I walked down the long corridor that led to that room. Some lights were useless, so yes, it sounds cliché, but it was kind of dark. It is a government hospital, so you can imagine how things were. I entered the room and began to count the bodies, but suddenly I saw out of the corner of my eye how one of them, which was covered with a blanket, seemed to have turned its head. I turned around very quickly, and my heart began to beat hard. I walked towards the body and uncovered it, and indeed, its head was in the direction of where I was. I felt a shiver all over my body, but I tried to calm down and continue with my work. I covered the body again and continued with what I was doing. Everything was silent when I could clearly hear a heartbreaking male wail coming from that same room. I didn't even have to turn around to imagine what had happened. Not a second passed when I ran out of there. I ran as hard as I could until I got to the room where the doctor was. I was pale and terrified. I could not even speak. To be honest, I did not want to tell the doctor anything, although in his silence, I could understand that he knew that something had happened and that it was not the first time I saw that expression. I just wanted it to be dawn to get out of there, and to be honest, I did not want to go back. But yes, I had to do it since it was necessary to finish my service. During the following months, many things happened again, but I'll leave that to another story. My name is Arturo, and I want to share my story with you. I have been a forensic doctor for 10 years. I have worked in different morgues throughout my profession, so it is already a daily thing for me to see all kinds of corpses and to work with them in the early morning, which is when my shifts are usually. But when I started working in that morgue, everything was different. I covered the night shift along with another colleague. One night we were working as usual, when late at night, we received the body of an old woman in an advanced state of decomposition. Those in charge of lifting the bodies told us that she was a lonely old woman who had no family, and that the neighbors were the ones who realized that she had died because of the foul smell coming from her house. We proceeded to do the autopsy and the legal procedures. When we finished, we put her in the cold room. After that, my partner and I took a break. We were talking when, for some reason, the atmosphere began to feel very heavy. He and I began to feel bad, like anguished, and we both agreed on the same thing, that something was not right. We were finishing our coffee when suddenly we heard a door open. The sound came from the cold rooms. It was incomparable, the creaking of those doors. He and I turned to look at each other, and we were silent for a few seconds. He asked me if that door was from the cold room, to which I answered yes, and we went to check. We went immediately to see what had happened, and when we arrived, we saw that the only door that was open was the old woman's door. She asked me with some concern if I had locked the door properly, to which I replied that yes. I had even put the padlock on it to tell him there was no way it could open. He was already very nervous because he had been working as a forensic doctor for a short time. The truth is that I was also a little tense because I had never had anything similar happen to me in any morgue, and I did not believe in paranormal things. But being there, everything was very different. I cannot explain how heavy the atmosphere felt, and more, with what had just happened, but I did not want to scare my partner more, so I told him not to worry, that surely that door was no longer useful for how old it was. I tried not to give much importance, and we continued working. I closed the door again where the old woman's body was, and we left the place. As the hours passed, he went to the bathroom, when suddenly I heard him shout my name. I ran to see what was going on. When I entered the bathroom, he was looking towards the bathrooms with a look of terror that I had never seen before. I asked him what had happened, and he answered me, the old lady only, pointing towards a bathroom. I could hardly speak. I was in a state of shock. I asked him who he was talking about. Which old lady? He said the one who arrived that night. He saw her while he was washing his hands. He saw her through the reflection of the mirror. She was watching him from the door of that bathroom. I didn't know what to think. The only thing I could do was to try to calm him down. He was getting scared because of what had happened earlier. That old lady was already dead. We know that it is impossible for her to move, but he kept looking towards that bathroom scared, and he swore to me that he had seen her. It was her same face, with a black eye, just like she had arrived. I felt really bad about how he looked. I told him to take that night off, not to worry. I was going to cover for him while he went to rest. Maybe that was what he needed. He agreed, but before he left, he told me to please be very careful, that he was sure because I could see the fear in his eyes. But I had to go back to work because other bodies had arrived. About an hour passed while I was doing another autopsy when the lights began to flicker, and after a few seconds, the light was completely gone. I turned on the flashlight of my phone and went to where the fuses were, but as I turned around the hallway, there she was. The old lady was in the hallway, sitting on one of the stretchers. She didn't move. She was just there, staring at me, and she let out such a sinister laugh that it makes my skin crawl every time I remember it. My only reaction was to turn around and run, and then the light came back. I stopped and turned around again. The old lady was gone. It was as if she had never been there. I didn't want to stay there anymore, so I called the doctor, who was the owner of that morgue, and told him what had happened to us and that I was going to leave the place. He arrived immediately. I was outside waiting for him because I didn't want to stay inside alone. He asked me if I was all right, and I told him yes, but evidently I was not, and I could not continue working, so we went inside to check what was going on. We went in and went to where the old woman's body was, and there she was, right where I had left her, as if nothing had happened. The doctor let me go, and he stayed in my place. The next day at night, I arrived at the place, and the doctor told me that things had also happened to him, and that he could hear a woman's laughter coming from the room. Assistant, so he personally went to the old lady's house to ask her neighbors if she had any family, someone who could claim her body. Talking to people, so he found out what was going on. They told him that the old woman had no family, friends, or anyone to visit her. No one wanted to approach her, since she was a witch. She was dedicated to black magic, that wailing was always heard in her house at night, and unpleasant smells, as well as smoke, came from there almost every night. It was said that she tortured animals, and the children on the block said that the old woman was always spying on them while they played soccer in the street, that she even once tried to take a 5-year-old girl, but that her older brother saw her, pushed the old woman, and took her little sister away. The girl's parents never did anything because of the fear they had of her, since it was known that, thanks to her witchcraft, people who had messed with her had died. She was a very bad and dark person. Just by passing in front of her house, you could feel that sensation of bad vibes and anguish, something that did not feel good, said the neighbor. She also told me that the best thing to do was to cremate the body, that nobody was going to claim it, and that, if they buried it in the common grave, she was going to come back, because she had made a pact with the devil by selling her soul to him, so we had to cremate it before it was too late. And something very bad happened to us inside the morgue. So that same night, the old woman was cremated, and we never again experienced that feeling of fear, anguish, and bad energies in the morgue. I worked there for 5 more years, and such an event never happened again, but it is certainly something that left me marked. That old woman made me realize how evil people can be, even after death. My name is Fatima. I have been a forensic doctor for some years. Throughout my career, I have lived some situations in the morgue, because it is true that many things happen there. It is very common, since many victims die in a very tragic and sudden way, and I do believe in that the souls that die that way cannot rest in peace, so they stay here, hovering among us. I know that being a doctor, I should not believe in these things. I should stick more to science and what has an explanation. But there are many things that I have gone through in these places, which make me believe that there is something beyond our understanding, and that there is no explanation. This story is one of many on the night shift. Only the security guard and I were there. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, the body of an 18-year-old girl arrived. She had been run over a few hours ago. We filled out the logbook and the paramedics left. I proceeded to do the autopsy, and I don't want to go into detail, but she had severe injuries all over her body. I felt very bad for the girl. After that, I went to the security guard to ask him if no one had arrived yet to claim the body, to which he answered that no one had called yet either. I took the opportunity to go to the bathroom, and I heard in the distance that the guard was talking to someone. I hurried because I thought that a family member had already arrived to claim the body of the girl. I dried my hands and went to the waiting room, but the guard was alone. I asked her who had arrived. She told me that a girl came in and said she was lost, and if I could help her get home. She looked disoriented, but I couldn't leave my job, just explained where she could get a cab to take her to her front door, and left. I did not give it any importance and went back to work. Everything was going normal, as any other day. I was preparing other bodies to deliver them to their families, when the corpse of the girl who had just arrived fell off the stretcher. Without any explanation, I only heard the blow of how the body hit the floor. I was very scared, to be honest, because there was no one there, or anything that could have knocked her down. It was impossible for her to fall. I went to ask the guard for help to get her back on the stretcher, since I could not do it by myself. The guard agreed, and when we entered the room, the guard saw the girl and was speechless. He didn't say anything. I asked him, but I could see the fear. What's wrong? He answered me with a very trembling voice that was the girl who came to ask him for help, to take her home a few moments ago. I was paralyzed. I didn't know what to tell him. From my mouth came out only a, "Are you sure?" He told me that yes, it was her, and he was completely sure. She even had the same tattoo on her right arm. It was her. Together, we lifted her up and put her on the stretcher. We left the room and could only comment that she was a lost soul, that she still did not know what had happened to her, and that she only wanted to go home. At that moment, more than fear, I felt a lot of sadness, since she was a very young girl whose life had been snatched away. Thank you very much for watching this video. I invite you to subscribe to see more scary content. Like the video and share it with your friends. There is a lot of content coming. Help me spread the fear. Until next time.